Okay, today I'm going to troubleshoot a problem with a sticking brake on one side, frozen caliper, or basically the brakes are dragging on one side. A lot of times when they're dragging, a lot of people think it's the caliper is frozen, which a lot of times it is. It takes a lot of heat, a lot of abuse. But I just want to make it clear the difference between a brake dragging and something else. Okay, now in this particular car, when you hit the brakes and release the brakes, the brakes are dragging bad. You can't even turn. Well, this is right now I loosened it, but you can't even turn the caliper. In other words, they're dragging. It's making the rotor's almost blue. All right, it's not releasing. When you squeeze it, it's not releasing. And I took it off, and even the grease points over here, because these slide. Everything is fine. That's fine. So how do you know if the caliper is frozen or something else? Okay, there's a simple thing. You hit the brakes. You could start the car, or you could just keep the car off, pump the brakes 3 times, release the brakes, come outside, and check all your wheels. Okay, I did that. All of them are turning freely except this one. So now what you do? Okay, so you know it's in this problem in this area. Okay, so an easy thing to do is once the rotor won't turn, it's really tight, it doesn't want to turn, you find your bleeder right here. Okay, you crack the bleeder. Now, brake fluid is going to come out. Okay, so you crack it. Don't pump the brakes or nothing. You just crack the bleeder and tighten it back up. If, after you do that, you can turn the rotor, then you know it's not the caliper. Because if the caliper was frozen or seized, right, that's mechanical. That's something that's seized, right? So when you release the pressure, that's not going to do anything because it's seized. It's not moving, all right? But if you relieve the pressure and it's not and it turns, then you know the piston released because of the pressure. So that means it could be, most commonly, is this brake line. This brake line over time, they should be always checked, just like any other type of maintenance on your car. Every couple of years, they should be checked. And what happens to these, they deteriorate inside. And when you hit the brakes, see the steel line, then it goes into the flex. When you hit the brakes, the pressure comes through the line into the piston, which squeezes the rotor, which stops the car. Okay? A lot of times, this deteriorates inside, and it becomes like a one-way valve. And what that means is that the fluid is squished. You know, when you press the brake pedal, the fluid is pushed through the line, right, into the back of the caliper, putting pressure on the piston. And when you relieve the brake, it's supposed to just relieve the pressure. But a lot of times, it's all deteriorated and acts like a one-way valve. So basically, the pressure, when you hit the brakes, the pressure is higher when you're hitting the brakes than when you're releasing the brakes, obviously. So what it does is it'll come down, and like inside this line, when it breaks down, it acts like a one-way valve, like I just said. And then when you release the pressure won't stabilize. It won't release. It stays pressure as if you had, as if you're putting putting pressure on the brakes. So that is, and then if it's not that, which it usually is, it could be something else in the line. But most of the time, these lines, if they're not leaking and they're not rusted, and basically if they're not leaking, it's not going to be that. Can it be the master cylinder on the top? That's probably, but usually master cylinder, you get a spongy pedal, and it goes to the floor. It's not really, they're not really known for that. It's this brake line. Okay, and like I said, it deteriorates over time, and it acts like a one-way valve. When you hit the brakes, the fluid goes here, and instead, when you let go of the brakes, instead of the fluid just stabilizing, it stays and keeps pressure on there, and that mimics a frozen caliper. Again, if, like I said, you hit the brakes first, car can be off, pump the brakes a couple of times, come out, check all your wheels. Now, let's say, assume this one does, see, it does turn, so that's fine. But if this doesn't turn, you release that bleeder. You just take whatever size wrench it is, you just release it, open the valve, close it. And now, if this still doesn't turn, then you know it's the physical caliper piston that's frozen and needs to be replaced. But if it does move, then you know the caliper released, it moved. So how can it be a frozen caliper? It's something else. It's the fluid in back of it on the line that is not releasing pressure. All right? So what you're going to do after that, let me explain. Let me show you. I'm going to take this line off. I'm going to take it off on the bottom and see if we have brake fluid dripping out. Okay, so I just took the line off. It's completely off. All right, this goes up, straight up. This goes all the way up. If you have ABS brakes, it goes through the ABS brake module, and it goes all the way up to your brake booster and ultimately the reservoir. Look at this. It's nothing leaking out. Now, if you want to make sure that it's this hose and not something further up the system, all right, you see? When I took the bolt out, you see the brake fluid on that was from inside the caliper itself. It was pouring out. Nothing came out of this hose. So of course, when you hit the brakes, a little bit of fluid forces its way out of here, right? And when you let go of the brake, it just stays in the caliper and it doesn't relieve pressure back into the line. Okay, now you follow this line to the steel line. Yours may look a little different, but basically you have a connection here. What you're going to want to do is take this connection, loosen it, take it off, and see if you have brake fluid coming out. I'm going to do that next. Okay, I just took it off, and you see it? You see it dripping out? So that means that we have no blockage in this line. You see it dripping? And then when I hooked it up, it wasn't doing nothing out of here. So this line has to be replaced. If it wasn't dripping out of here, then you would have to, do a little more research up. In other words, you would have to go where this line goes. If this goes into the ABS or if it goes straight into the master cylinder, you would have to disconnect it and see where it starts to drip. And then you'll know where your clog is. All right. And all right. So, and you want to make sure that the master cylinder is full when you do this, all the way full. Okay. You don't want it to go below the low mark because then you would have to bleed the whole system and, it's going to give you extra work. But you see how she's leaking out? And of course, you don't press the brakes or nothing like that. You're going to have to replace this line and you're going to have to bleed just this side. Okay, and here's what the new hose looks like. It's basically the same exact thing. It's good to get a factory one. Or this was a AC Delco because this is a GM car. You see the piece here? It's the same as here. And in the back where it connects, it's this. And it comes with two washers. This should come with two washers. Yeah, right there. The washers, brass washers. You put one in front of the fitting and one in back of the fitting, and you put it on the caliper. Okay, just take this bolt out and loosen that and replace the lines. Very simple. And after you do that, like I said, you make sure your reservoir is full. Okay, and once you have the line on, you're going to have to just bleed this side. Okay, what you can do, you can use a vacuum pump, you use gravity feed, or if you don't have none of that, you can have an assistant in the car and pump the brakes. And let's say we're going to do it the way with the assistant. What they would do is you make sure the reservoir is full. Make sure all your line, everything is tight. Make sure this is closed, the bleeder is closed. Have them pump it about 5 or 6 times and hold the pedal to the floor. Hold it. And when they say they're on hold, you crack this bleeder. All right, and they're going to go all the way to, you crack it for a couple seconds, and their foot's going to go to the bottom. Don't let them release it. Then you lock it. Then you tell them, okay, pump again. They'll pump another 5, 6, 7 times. You tell them to hold. They'll hold it. You release it, and you keep doing it about 6 or 7 times until you have clean fluid coming out and no bubbles. And then you lock it up, and then you feel the brake pedal. Make sure the brake pedal feels firm, and then what you do. And the car doesn't have to be on. Don't put the car on when you do that. All right, you pump the brakes again, really hard, release them, come out, and make sure that your rotor turns and everything is fine. And then that job is complete, and you don't keep chasing a dragging brake somewhere, thinking that you replace this, and it still didn't fix the problem 100%. And it's dangerous because these brakes heat up; they can boil the fluid, the brake fluid, and cause moisture and air to build up there, and you'll lose your brakes. For a simple thing like that, and you'll lose your brakes, and it's a dangerous situation. So, and again, if you're not comfortable doing with the brakes, anything with the brakes, don't do it. Have a professional do it. All right, guys, Motorcarnut. Please subscribe, hit that like button. I got tons of videos coming, all aspects of automotive, and I'll see you guys in the next video. By the way, this applies to any car, any foreign car, American car, Asian car, truck, doesn't really matter. All the brakes work basically the same. All right, guys, take care.